So far we've visited a distillery and we've had lots of conversation with whiskey experts and we've had a lot of tastings, but we haven't quite explored whiskey beyond just whiskey. So today we're here with Stauning, which is a Danish whiskey brand, and we're going to be pairing it with lots of Nordic cuisines. Okay, so today I'm here with Ali, who is from Stauning Whiskey. Ali, could you tell us a little bit about Stauning and what makes Danish whiskey slightly different to other whiskies out there?
I think first and foremost it's from Denmark, which is where we get the Danish whiskey part from. Ultimately, I think what makes us a little bit more special is where we source all our grains from, our water, our peat. We use heather as well for some of the smoking, but all of those ingredients come from Denmark, and you get a real sense of place with the whiskey that you experience. That drinking experience is really true to place. It's nice to produce this wonderful whiskey in a beautiful distillery in Stauning, which is actually the village it's from.
Nice. Okay, what whiskey are we going to be trying first? If you could just briefly introduce that whiskey and how it's going to pair exactly with what we're going to try it with.
Okay, super. Well, I think we should start probably with the rye.
Okay.
And this is kind of our entry-level whiskey at the moment. It's a 60% rye in the mash bill, and then added to that is barley, so 40% barley. So a little bit different to the American whiskies that sometimes contain corn or wheat.
Yeah.
It's almost like liquid rye bread. It's really cereal-like. It's got all those big kind of rich rye flavours with that kind of lovely sweetness and fruitiness of the barley coming through as well.
Right, so this is what we're going to be trying it with. This is an open-faced sandwich.
Yep.
So this is one of the very famous Danish foods. How do you think it's going to pair with the one that you chose, with Chaos?
So that's right, I chose Chaos for this. This is something we actually kind of have at lunchtime at the distillery, which is really nice. You've obviously got the rye bread, you've got the fish, you've got the likes of dill, you've got the pickles on top. And I think Chaos is going to go well with this because there's so much going on here on this plate. There's so much going on with this whiskey.
It's going to be chaotic in the mouth.
Yeah. So this whiskey is essentially our triple malt. For the kind of whiskey lovers out there will know what I mean by saying that. But ultimately we have peated barley, unpeated barley and rye blended together, and then this is finished in a sweet wine cask just to give it a bit more fruitiness as well. So there's something in there for everyone. There's that little essence of smoke, which will go nicely with the fish. There's that rye, which will obviously go well with the rye bread. And it's just a nice, easygoing, fruity whiskey. Works really well in all those kind of classic Scotch cocktails as well. There you go, one for you.
I think I'm going to have a sip of it alone first, and then I'll have like a bit with the rye bread.
Sure.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Immediately I get like sweetness, so I can taste that, the sweet wine cask that you were talking about. What sweet wine cask is it?
Madeira. So Madeira casks,
okay.
yeah.
I can't wait to taste it with fish on bread.
We're digging into this, are we?
Yeah.
Super.
Okay, so like how do you do this? Do you normally just have a bite and then you have the whiskey to follow it up?
I think all those flavours in there,
yeah,
and then let those kind of coat your palate, and then the whiskey afterwards to kind of cut through that.
Okay. Oh. I'm already gone in now. First of all, that does taste amazing alone. Mm-hmm. And you're lucky to have it at the distillery as well.
Mm-hmm. Even from this now, you get that little element of salty smoke from the salmon. You get all that kind of fresh vibrancy from the pickles, which I think is why it pairs really well with the Chaos.
You're right, I'm like saved it in my mouth.
Yeah.
So I'll just now follow it up with whiskey. That's like really amazing to get.
Yeah. And it's the same in the world of Scotch, I guess, because you have, you know, all this amazing seafood in Scotland. You have all this amazing whiskey, and it does pair so well. And I will maybe touch on it later, but you know, oysters and pouring a little dram of whiskey into the empty oyster shell and drinking that. It's quite the experience. So something new to try, maybe next time.
Yeah. How do you think this sweetness contrasts with the saltiness of this? Like, is that something that's typical in the whiskey world, or?
Yeah, I think so. You know, that element of salt kind of can bring the whiskey to life. So whether it's done with things like blue cheeses, seafood, anything like this, so the whiskey always kind of nicely pairs with that, because there'll inevitably be some sort of sweetness from the grains that we're using here. So, you know, it's always quite nice to balance those two things out. But then again, there's so much flavour within the world of whiskey. There's a whiskey there for everyone. It's just the matter of exploring. All
right, next one would be kind of familiar to anyone really. Swedish meatballs.
Not
cabbage.
Swedish.
Sorry, Danish. Danish.
Swedish meatballs, I don't mind.
Well, we're going to just say Nordic cuisine, really.
Super. Scandinavian cuisine, Nordic cuisine, meatballs.
Okay, how would it go with the next one? Introduce the next one.
So the next one is smoke, and this is actually where the journey for Stauning begins, because originally the founders wanted to create an Islay style whiskey. So this is our only single malt that we make at the distillery, and we smoke the grains, the barley, with Danish peat and Danish heather. So you get this nice kind of like citrusy smoke coming through. It's quite light and vibrant, quite grassy, but because of the way we make our whiskey, we have this amazing still house with 24 copper pot stills that are all direct fire heated. We get this wonderful Maillard process, which is kind of like that caramelization, and you get this wonderful kind of toasted note, again all that cereal. So I think as quite a nice rich chewy whiskey, but also the smoke will complement the meat. And then it's quite a nice rounded flavour, so we'll get the alcohol there as well. So this is 47% ABV.
Yeah. And it's
that's for you.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And it's the peated whiskey.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. It smells peaty already. It's definitely like less sweet than the last one, and it's got more of a punchy, the smokiness that you were speaking about.
Absolutely.
And I definitely get like the cereal notes.
Yeah. The whiskey is aged in virgin American oak, recharred American oak barrels. But then we also get the addition of the sweet wine again and Jamaican rum casks. So that's probably where that punchiness is coming through as well. Yeah. So a lot going on, but in essence, it's still that quite fruity, well-rounded whiskey. And I think the addition of heather, which they don't use in Scotland, is giving it that vibrancy.
It's really good as well.
I feel like I'm on MasterChef and we should be giving feedback on all this wonderful food we're having as well. But
No, I'm giving feedback on both the whiskey and the food, don't worry.
As a pairing, yeah.
I think the finishing in the rum cask is actually perfect for this. Because the last one, it was like kind of immediately very, very sweet, but this has got the subtle sweetness at the very end, which goes really well with savoury.
I think smoke and meat is quite nice, and back to that kind of Maillard process. You get that on seared steaks, you get it on meat in general, so it's quite nice to match those two, and I think there's that element of that smokiness just really complements and cuts through the dish.
Definitely. Right, so last course, dessert, Danish dream cake, which I've actually never heard of before.
Okay.
It's sweet, so I'm guessing the final one is also very sweet. This one? Or am I wrong? Go on.
I think in essence there is some sweetness to this for sure.
Okay.
My favourite way to describe this is it's like liquid rye bread. So it's got all that wonderful kind of spices that rye offers, and then you've got all that wonderful sweetness that the barley offers. So this is a blend of 60% rye and 40% barley, aged in virgin oak and new American first fill casks. So you get all that wonderful kind of rich toffee, apple, everything else, which I kind of think goes well with the sweeter dessert at the end.
Similar to like bourbon.
Yeah, similar to bourbon, or very similar to rye. The only exception to the way we make it is obviously all our grains are locally sourced from Denmark. Within a 25 kilometre radius of the distillery. So we talk very much about grain to glass because we bottle on site, we mature on site. So it's a fantastic whiskey. It works really well in all the American style classic cocktails, but neat, you really get a sense of what it is to be a whiskey made in and around Stauning. And this for me is a really great example of Danish rye. We're in now at 48% ABV, so it's got a bitter punch to it, but I think the alcohol helps cut through the sweetness that the
oh my god, you're right.
Offers.
It literally smells like bread. It smells like if I was touring a pot still or something.
Yeah,
it smells
or like
like
even fresh from a bakery, and you know, as we know, Denmark's renowned for its pastries, Danish pastries.
Yes.
So
I should have brought those in.
But our drink cake's good. We're good with this.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
This literally tastes like rye. Like
yes,
rye
yeah. It's in its rawest form.
A sweet, a very, very sweet kind of. It almost tastes like a pastry. I don't know, weirdly.
Yes, no, I completely agree with you, and it tastes a bit like the rye that we had earlier, obviously.
Yeah.
But as I said, liquid rye bread. At the end, you kind of get that tingling sensation. That's where the spiciness from the rye comes. So you get a little bit of that kind of cinnamon apple coming through. So yeah, a fantastic whiskey.
What was this one finished in?
So this is virgin oak and first fill bourbon casks as well. So we're still obviously, the luxury we have as quite a young distillery is that we get to do all this wonderful experimentation. We've done additions of our rye finished in maple syrup casks, for example. That actually won best single cask rye in the world a couple of years ago.
Fine.
So it's really nice to see the experimentation the guys are doing at the distillery. But this is so versatile, and I think also offers a real great example of what it is to be a Danish rye whiskey. Do you mind?
Please go for it, because I feel like I've dug into all of the food first. I really like how the coconut shavings at the top of that pairs with this as well, specifically. And this is like the only sweet dish that we've had.
Yeah.
And I think the bourbon cask finish really goes really well with that coconut as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're 100% right. And coconut is certainly something that you would get from American oak. European oak tends to offer a little bit more kind of fruit, these kind of tannins coming through, but coconuts, vanilla, all these wonderful flavours that we get from American oak definitely work so well with the rye.
I think this has been my favourite pairing so far.
Me too. Yeah.
Has it?
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
we're on the same page. Okay, Ali, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so delicious. I'm going to finish off that food when you're gone. And if there's any concluding comments you have?
No, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about Stauning. Go and find it. Go and buy it. Go and try it.
Yes, try it with sweet stuff, especially the rye. Thank you so much. And if you guys have any questions at all, please let us know in the comments.